I found Christmassy window clings. Hi everyone. Yes, I have here these gel window clings that Dollarama has provided us yet again, and today I'm going to be testing these with UV resin as promised. Now, today I'm only going to be using the snowflake window clings since I am going to be making smaller pieces, but definitely keep an eye out for a future video because I need to make something with these tree clings. They're just too cute. I'm going to be using JBKonsCreations UV resin, so if you're curious to see if these gel window clings work with UV resin too, let's get started. This is the mold I'll be working with today, and since I'm working with UV resin, to make my life easier, I'm going to right off the bat put my mold on this acrylic plate that's for my UV lamp. This way I can easily slide it in and out of my UV lamp and I don't risk spilling my UV resin. Gotta work smarter, not harder, right? I'm going to start by partially filling 4 of the circles with clear UV resin, and this time I'm not going to be curing any layers before laying my window clings. If you watched my previous video where I tried this with epoxy, you know that I did start with a thin layer to protect my molds in case any mishaps happen, but today I'm just going to go for it and see what happens. Since we cure UV resin on demand, it should be a lot easier to fix any mishaps that could happen. Now, it's going to be interesting to see if I will be able to peel these window clings off the UV resin like I did with epoxy, especially since UV resin gets so hot so fast. Epoxy resin does get hot, but as long as it doesn't flash cure, the heat is more gradual, so I think that if these window clings were to melt and fuse with any type of resin, it probably is UV resin. It's gonna be cool to see if there's any differences. Feel free to pause the video and comment your predictions down below. Okay, so now I'm going to take my tweezers and carefully lay these clings on my UV resin. I have sped this part of the video up a little, but know that I am going slow. I am laying these gently so that I don't get any air bubbles trapped underneath the clings. Now I'm just going to quickly adjust these snowflakes, get them as centered as possible, and then I can put these into my UV lamp and I'll give them 3 minutes to cure. I do want to take a moment to point out a flaw and the solution of this UV lamp I'm using here, and it's that the bottom lamp doesn't always turn on with the top one like it's supposed to. If you have this lamp, I'm sure you've noticed this, and honestly, it did take me a little while to figure out what was wrong with it. But the way to fix this is you need to line up the little metal prongs on both sides on both lamps and then attach both lamps together, making sure the metal prongs touch each other. I really wish these rounded parts were solid and couldn't rotate because that's where the problem is coming from. So hopefully if Let's Resin does come out with a newer version of this lamp, they will fix this issue, but as you can see, the light is on now and both sides of my UV resin can cure. This resin is cured now, so let's see if I'll be able to peel these off. And the answer is yes! Yay! Oh, this is awesome! And the window cling doesn't seem to be affected at all by the heat from the UV resin either. It's still soft and squishy. I'm also not seeing any color in the resin itself, so this time it seems no color leaching happened. It must have just been that orange pigment in the cling from my last video, so I guess if you try this yourself, avoid orange gel window clings. I'm also really happy that the UV resin did pick up the imprint of the extra detail in this last cling. It makes the snowflake look so much prettier. Okay, so now I'm going to finish off these pieces and I'm going to have some fun with these glitters. You can't do Christmas crafts without glitter, am I right? So I'm just going to pour some UV resin into these little cups and I'm going to mix in my different glitters in each one. I'm going to use the blue glitter and the dazzling diamond to fill in the snowflake imprints, and the Christmassy glitter and holographic silver are going to be for filling up the rest of these pieces. To fill these snowflake imprints, I do have to use the finer glitter since there isn't much space for chunkier glitter. These snowflakes can't be more than 3 to 4 millimeters thick, but since this dazzling diamond is a fine mica powder slash fine glitter combo, I think it's going to work perfectly for these snowflakes. It has such a lovely sparkly shimmer to it, just like real snow. Now, I know I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video, especially since I already did talk about my UV lamp, but this is your friendly reminder that UV resin needs UV light to harden. I know, this might be a silly reminder, but I just want to say it for anyone who's watching who's new to UV resin. You can use the sunlight to cure UV resin, especially if you live somewhere super sunny, but you do need some kind of UV lamp to cure this type of resin. And speaking of sunlight, another friendly reminder, when you're working with UV resin, try to work away from your window so that your resin doesn't start curing from that sunlight before you're ready to cure your project. I cured these snowflakes for 5 minutes and they're hard now, so I can go ahead and mix up the rest of my resin to fill the rest of these pieces. As for this resin, I'll probably give it 10 minutes under my UV light just to make sure it's properly cured and that the UV light gets through all this lovely glitter. One question I've gotten a few times when I do UV resin videos, do is can you over cure your UV resin with your UV light? And to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure. I'm sure you guys have noticed that I don't use UV resin too often, but in my experience, when it comes to Jade Diction and Let's Resin's UV resin, I haven't had anything happen. But I have used other brands where it does start yellowing right away from my UV lamp, so potentially you can. I think it might just come down to the quality of the UV resin, but if you've experienced any kind of overcuring with UV resin, be sure to comment down below. I'm sure any fellow resiner, including myself, would be interested in reading your experience. These pieces are cured now, so let's demold them. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to turn these into since this video was mostly about experimenting with the window clings in the UV resin, but I am going to put a top coat on these, so maybe I'll decide then. At least we do know now that these window clings can be used with UV resin, but what do we all think of these pieces? I personally think that they've turned out really lovely. I think they look really festive and wintry, and the sparkle of the glitter is chef's kiss. Now, I'm going to put a top coat on these to make them nice and glossy, and I've decided that I definitely want to turn my favorite one into a magnet to keep in my craft room on display. I have these metal shelves on my pegboard where I store my pigments that I can stick it to. I'll show you at the end, but as for the other pieces, I might turn them into keychains or ornaments. I think these would look really cute hanging off of my Christmas tree. These could also look cute as phone grips. Anyways, now I'm going to give these another 3 minutes under the UV light and that should be it. Okay, this top coat is beautifully cured now. I don't think I've ever gotten such a perfect top coat cure with UV resin before, but as you can see, I did turn my favorite piece into a magnet and I did turn one other into a keychain. As for the other two, I am going to make them into ornaments, but as I was working on these two, my drill decided to break on me, so I will have to wait to finish those when I get a new drill. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you've learned something. If you did, then please smash the like button. And if you'd like to see other resin videos I've done, then be sure to click one of these videos. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!